My career as a professional musician began in the mid-1960s. And I was just drawn to the life of the musician and the sounds of music itself. I knew people, family friends that were professional musicians, and I just thought this was the kind of lifestyle that I was attracted to, you know, that they worked in nightclubs and they seemed to be part of an insider group. You know, they had a different language and a different way to live than where I grew up, which was all about going to work at Ford's or Chrysler, or, you know, work in an auto factory. So the beginning of my career was really started with a fascination with the sound of a snare drum. And you know, at the Boys Club of Detroit had a summer camp for city kids, and the kid at camp had a snare drum, and it was loud, and I liked that it was loud, you know, and you had to pay attention to the kid playing the drum, and plus the rhythm had a great power, like we could march in lockstep to the beat, and I thought, this is just fabulous, you know. We'd walk down to the chow hall to the marching beat. But then Elvis was popular. This was in the 50s, and I thought, you know, what a great way to meet girls. So between Elvis and then my mother was dating a fellow who played the guitar and sang, and he would come over and court her, and so I could see that he was getting over, and so I wanted some of that attention too, you know, and I found out that, you know, music was a very powerful force, and if I could master it, then maybe I could have some of that power. After initially, you know, discovering music and the power of music and taking guitar lessons for a few years, I started when I was 10 years old. I'm 58 today. At a certain point, it became clear that just playing the guitar by myself wasn't what I needed to be doing, that I needed to work in a band with other musicians. So I started looking around the neighborhood, you know, at school, asking other kids, you know, did they know anybody that played instruments, somebody that might like to be in a band with me. You know, I was starting a band. And you know, and went on auditions. You know, there'd be ads in the paper, in the Detroit newspapers. I grew up in Detroit, and you know, musician wanted, band looking for guitarists, because there was a real healthy working scene for musicians in the 60s. The factories worked swing shifts 24/7. So there was a day shift, an afternoon shift, and a night shift. So nightclubs were open till 2 in the morning, weekdays, and there was a whole strip along Michigan Avenue on the west side, and there were other clubs on the east side where musicians could work all the time. So, you know, I just tried to make inroads into that world. I lived in Detroit, and then I guess in the early 60s, we moved out to a working class suburb of Detroit called Lincoln Park, and it was there that my ability to play the guitar improved a great deal, and that was where I met the guys that would eventually become the MC5, you know, through that same process of asking around at school for other kids that played instruments, you know, and eventually, you know, played in a lot of little neighborhood bands, and we played, you know, house parties and block parties, and it evolved to record hops. These were appearances you could make that were promotions by Detroit radio stations, and the DJs would have bands perform while they spun records in between at a dance. And of course they would make a pile of money, and they would give the bands $10 each, which was a fortune to us in those days. I mean, we could put gas in the cars and buy hamburgers, and get to play in the band. So it was a win-win deal for us.